Hi everybody, Antoinette here. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to talk about how to keep a conversation going in a positive way. I'm going to give you 6 ways to do that because we've all been there in those situations where things have just died off a little bit in a conversation and it's gotten a little awkward silence and you want to do something to revive it. I have so many people tell me, I know how to start a conversation. I know how to make it comfortable in the beginning, but then sometimes I just feel like I run out of things to say and then things get a little awkward. The first way that you can keep a conversation going when there's that awkward silence is to refer back to something that the person said earlier on in a conversation. For instance, somebody may have mentioned in passing that things have gotten really busy for them at work. And when there's that awkward silence and you're trying to keep the conversation going, you could refer back to that by saying, hey, you mentioned that things had gotten really busy at work. So tell me about what are you doing? What are you working on? Or maybe they had mentioned a few minutes ago that they had been out of town. So you could go back to that by saying, hey, you mentioned you were out of town. So tell me, where'd you go? Now, often I'll have people ask me, they'll say, I don't want to be seen as intrusive. I don't want to ask people certain things that they may not care to talk about. Here's the thing to remember. If somebody mentioned it earlier on in conversation, then that means it's certainly okay to ask about it. Because if they didn't want you to ask about it, they wouldn't have told you in the first place. So when you refer back, it not only revives the conversation, but it shows the person that you are genuinely listening to this thing that they told you earlier on in conversation and that you want to know more about it. The second way that you can keep a conversation going is by doing something that Steve Anthony, founder of Loopword, writes about in an article on skillsyouneed.com. He talks about going from narrow to open when it comes to questions. And the way this works is by to ask a couple of narrow-ended questions and then follow that up with an open-ended question. So an example would be, do you like to travel? And the other person says, yes. And then you say, what's your favorite place to go? And they say, Italy. And you say, well, tell me about when did you go there and what was it like? Now, what if the answer is no? What if you ask them a question like that, like, do you like to travel? And they say, no, then what do you say? Well, then you could follow it up with something that is open-ended, something like, well, tell me, what do you like to do? What do you usually spend your weekends or your vacations doing? The third way to keep a conversation going is to actually reveal something about yourself. Because if you're watching this video and you're wondering about those awkward silences and how to keep a conversation going, it may be that you are not offering enough about yourself. You're just peppering them with questions without ever revealing anything about yourself. But now remember, when you do bring up something about yourself, don't do it just to puff yourself up. Have it something that you're revealing about yourself, maybe something that you like or something that you've always wondered about or something that you recently did. Believe me, I've had to tell myself this because I'm really good at asking questions, but I have to remember I have to bring something to the conversation. Now, if you're liking this video, I hope you'll subscribe to my channel for more videos on confidence, communication, and topics for introverts. The fourth way to keep a conversation going is by being really observant about your surroundings. And whenever you're wanting to bring something up to keep the conversation going, to make a comment or ask a question about your surroundings. But here's the key. Make sure and keep it positive. Don't use that as a time to start complaining or a time to start gossiping about somebody that's across the room. The other reason why this is a great thing to say when there's that awkward silence is it actually helps break the eye contact with you or the other person or that awkward eye contact because you don't know where to look. If you're commenting on something over there, then you're both engaged and looking over off into that direction. The fifth way that you can keep a conversation going is by thinking back to what is it that is their big interest. Is it their kids? Is it sports? Is it their job? And go back and talk to them about that subject. There's a friend of mine named Jason, and I see Jason about once a year. Jason's probably watching this video. And every time I see Jason, after we've said hello, after we talk for a little bit, he always asks me about my YouTube journey because he knows it's something that I'm really excited about. He asks me about it every time. But you know what? I absolutely love it. And I freely start talking to him, and we're not at ever a loss for conversation. And number 6, one of the best ways to keep a conversation going is to actually bring other people into the conversation. Sometimes conversations just need a little life by bringing in a brand new person. So for instance, you're in a public place and you've been communicating with somebody and you see somebody nearby. You can start talking to them and then actually bring them into the conversation with the two of you. Now, here's an important thing to know, and that is determining when the other person wants to end the conversation. There's actually a body language sign that people will give when they are wanting to end a conversation, so be sure and check out my video on that. I've got it above and in the description below. The last thing you want to do is to try to force a conversation when somebody is already giving you signs that they really want to end the conversation. And next, allow a few seconds of silence and not think it's taboo because neither of you have said anything for the past few seconds. Sometimes it might feel awkward to you, but maybe when you're communicating with someone who is more introverted, they actually welcome some of that silence. So sometimes you just need to allow that space of silence, and then the conversation will get flowing again naturally.